After my sister cheated with my fiancé and family back their affair, the business collapsed in debt and they came begging, but I refused and called police. My 29-year-old woman, and not too long ago, I got a call out of the blue from my mom, whom I hadn't talked to in nearly 5 years. The reason she reached out? Well, my sister and her husband were going through something really bad, and she thought I should know. Now, here's where it gets kind of soap opera-ish. The guy who is now my sister's husband was once upon a time going to be my husband. Let's rewind a bit to give you the full picture. My sister, let's call her Melissa, is 27, and she ended up marrying my former fiancé Lucas, who is also 29. Lucas and I were college sweethearts, and after dating for nearly 5 years, he decided to pop the question. I was over the moon. Lucas was so excited about us getting engaged that he threw a huge party to celebrate our commitment. The party was everything I had dreamed of. Our friends were there, the music was great, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. The night was perfect, or so I thought. At around 10 p.m., the party was still in full swing, but I needed to step outside into the backyard to get better cell phone reception because I wanted to make a call. As I walked out, I expected just a quiet night, but instead, I stumbled upon a scene that looked like it came right out of a movie, except it was my life. There, in the dim light of the backyard, was Lucas and Melissa, and they weren't just talking, they were kissing passionately. It took a moment for the shock to register, and in those few seconds they didn't even notice I was there. I stood frozen, my heart sinking as the reality set in. When they finally saw me, they instantly pulled apart, but the damage was done. The image of them together was burned into my mind. Without thinking, I ran. I dashed to my car, drove off into the night, and didn't stop until I reached the nearest hotel. Sitting in that hotel room, my emotions were a whirlwind: anger, sadness, disbelief. It felt like a nightmare. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Melissa. She was apologizing, saying she was really sorry, but she had fallen in love with Lucas. She confessed that their affair had been going on for quite some time. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Lucas texted me. He explained that he had proposed to me in a desperate attempt to forget Melissa, hoping that committing to me would end his feelings for her. Obviously, that plan had failed miserably. He admitted that what he felt for Melissa was too strong and that, in his heart, it was always her. I stayed at that hotel for a few days, each day grappling with the betrayal. It felt unreal, like some sort of cruel joke life was playing on me. Here I was, supposed to be planning a wedding, and instead I was trying to piece together my broken heart, wondering how the two people I trusted most could hurt me so deeply. It was a tough time, and even thinking back to it now stirs up a lot of emotions. After those tough days alone at the hotel, I knew I had to face reality again. I couldn't just stay away forever. I needed to go back, pick up my belongings, and get back to my job. I couldn't afford to lose it over personal issues. So after gathering all the strength I could muster, I returned home. What I walked into felt surreal. My whole family was there, including Lucas, as if they were just waiting for my return, under different circumstances. It might have seemed touching. Like they all cared and were waiting to support me. But knowing the truth made it feel like a twisted scene from a play. Since I'd left the party, my phone had been buzzing non-stop. Everyone was trying to reach me, sending texts asking if I was okay, pleading for me to come back and talk. I hadn't answered any of them. I wasn't ready. So you can imagine the shock and the flurry of emotions when I walked through the door. Everyone rushed over, giving me hugs and expressing relief at seeing me safe. Melissa, of all people, was the first to reach me. She threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face, as if she was the victim, as if she hadn't shattered my world. I was so stunned by everything that I couldn't even move. I just stood there, frozen, while everyone else buzzed around me with concern and questions. Once the initial commotion settled down, I found my voice. I cleared my throat, silencing the room, and announced plainly that I was only there to collect my things and that I'd be moving out for good. The air thickened with tension at my words. Lucas, who had been silent up until then, finally spoke up. His voice was steady, almost resigned, as he told everyone that there was no need for me to leave my own home. He'd already packed his belongings and was planning to move in with Melissa. Hearing him say that, declaring his decision so publicly, was both a relief and a fresh wave of pain. It was an end and a beginning, his words cementing the harsh reality of our broken engagement and the new path he was choosing without me. Since everything was out in the open anyway, my family, my parents, my aunt, my dad's younger sister, who has lived in the same house ever since her husband passed away, actually had wide smiles on their faces, even though there was nothing to smile about, at least not according to me. Melissa was standing beside Lucas in an awkward side hug and looked at me very sadly but smiling. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask my family what the heck they were even smiling about because as far as I was concerned, Melissa had just broken up my engagement and stolen my boyfriend of almost 5 years. There was really nothing very funny or sweet about this. My mother chose to speak up at that point and told me that they couldn't go back in time and change the past, but they could accept the future, and they knew that the future had Melissa and Lucas together in it. Granted, it was a relationship that had formed out of cheating and they did feel sorry about it, but they also wanted me to understand and accept that this was for the best. Melissa said that she was very sorry for taking my boyfriend away from me, but she couldn't help falling in love with him. She wished that she could have told me earlier and I didn't have to find out this way, but apparently they were madly in love and wanted to spend their lives with each other. Then the two of them kissed, right in front of me, and my mother had the audacity to even wipe a tear from her eye. I snapped and told them that this wasn't supposed to be sentimental or emotional and that what they were doing was disgusting. To my surprise, my family seemed to get annoyed with my behavior and told me that I was being too bratty about the situation. Instead of being happy for my sister, I was making this all about myself, and they didn't approve of my behavior. I was stunned by their attitude about this and told them all to get the heck out of my house that very moment. I couldn't for the life of me understand how they were defending what Melissa and Lucas had done while making me out to be the bad guy and acting as though I was overreacting. My father intervened and told me not to act like a child because these things happen and I should take it in my stride. He wanted me to celebrate that my sister had finally found her soulmate instead of being jealous of her. They were literally all acting insane and I couldn't deal with it anymore, so I just said screw it, went into my room, packed some of my things and left yet again, without even speaking to them or waiting to hear them out, even as they called out my name and told me not to go. I really didn't have anything left to say to them because it was very clear to me that they cared more about Melissa and her happiness than about me, or even about what was right and wrong. They were so caught up in trying to justify what Melissa had done that they completely forgot that I was also a human being with real feelings as well. After that day, my family tried to contact me several times, but I never responded because I didn't think I owed that to them. A couple of weeks later, I even received an invitation to Melissa and Lucas's wedding, which I declined, obviously. All the common friends that Lucas and I had also declined the wedding invitation in solidarity with me. And even the couple of relatives who knew the truth refused to interact with my family after they learned how they had treated me in the aftermath of the party. It's been 5 years and I've pretty much cut them out of my life entirely. They occasionally tried to weasel their way back into my life by wishing me well on my birthday or New Year, but I always ignored them. I never even blocked any of them, even though I did remove them from my following and friends list, but since I have a public account, they could see what I was up to, which is what I wanted. I wanted them to see, and I wanted them to know that I was leading a fabulous life and keep burning with jealousy. It was petty, but it was the least I could do after how they screwed me over. And up until recently, I barely even had a clue of what they'd been up to in the last couple of years. My mother called me about 4 days ago from a number that I didn't have saved. When I answered the call and realized it was my mom on the other end, I immediately tried to hang up, but she begged me desperately for one chance to talk to me because apparently they were in dire need of help. I agreed to talk to her for just a couple of minutes, but only because she sounded so upset and my humanity didn't allow me to turn my back on her at that moment. She told me that Melissa and Lucas had started a business of their own a couple of years ago, but it was failing badly, and their investors were all backing out because they were failing to make any profit at all. So they borrowed more money, but even that didn't help their business, and now they were neck-deep in debt, and the loan sharks were all after them. They were being hounded by everyone, from their employees to their investors and the people they had borrowed money from. My mother knew that I lived a luxurious lifestyle and could afford to help them out, so she had turned to me as a last resort and was begging me to help them out by loaning them some money so they could pay off their debts. And it was no small amount either. She was asking me for almost $75,000. I asked her why Melissa wasn't calling me if she needed help, and why she was making my mother speak to me on her behalf. So my mother told me that Melissa and Lucas didn't even know that she was coming to me for help. They had given her strict instructions not to approach me because I guess we all still remember exactly what happened 5 years ago. Melissa didn't want me to know any of this and wasn't ready to take help from me, but my mother didn't know anybody else who would have that kind of money and would give it to them at the drop of a hat. A couple of months had already passed, and Melissa and Lucas were struggling to even put food on the table. My parents were helping them all they could, and even Lucas's family were trying to give them all that they possibly could, but it was just not enough, and even they had to be able to support themselves in the future, so it was impossible for them to just give away all the money they'd saved over the years, especially because most of my family was retired, and so were Lucas's parents. And that's why my mother, with no other option left, had called me to request help. Now, I could afford to help them out, but I really didn't want to. Melissa was right for not contacting me to ask for help. They'd lost the right to make any demands of me the day they cheated on me. I told my mother that I couldn't help them, and even if I could, I wouldn't. My mother sounded very upset and told me that I was being cruel and I needed to think about my family. I told her that Melissa and Lucas hadn't thought about me when they had that affair, and neither did my family think about me while they were supporting the two of them. So right now, there was no need for me to think about them either. I'd worked hard to get to the position where I am today, and I wasn't about to just drop $75,000 on two people who didn't even deserve it. My mother then began to cry on the phone and told me that she had never expected me to grow up to be so selfish, and claimed that my sister and her husband would end up in big trouble if I didn't help them out. I said that it was just too bad, but I couldn't help them, and then I hung up. Since then, my mother has been sending me several texts every hour, begging me to reconsider and think about my sister for once. She said that this was not the time for petty revenge, and that the trouble Melissa was in was very serious. So if I didn't help her now, I really would regret it in the future. She's being crazy, and I don't understand what to say to her because I don't want to feel like the bad guy here either. Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister out financially after she stole my fiancé 5 years ago? Update 1. I finally made the decision to block my family's phone numbers and social media accounts. I hadn't done that earlier for two main reasons. First off, there was a part of me that wanted them to see what my life was like without them. I kind of hoped they'd see my posts and updates and feel a little bit of regret for how things went down between us, maybe even miss me a little. Secondly, I was worried about what might happen if I cut them off completely and then something bad happened to them. I thought I might end up regretting not being in touch if, say, there was an emergency or something serious happened. But now I've reached a point where I don't care about those things anymore. Honestly, I think I should have blocked them 5 years ago when everything first went south. I've been asking myself why I kept the lines open this long. Initially, it might have been out of pettiness. I admit that. Like by not helping my sister when she needed it, I was sort of trying to prove a point. But refusing to help them now isn't about being petty, it's about being logical and protecting myself. Over the years, they've wasted a lot of money. Money that they never managed to earn back. It's been one financial disaster after another with them. This time they came to me asking for $75,000, which is no small sum. Sure, I'm doing okay financially, but that doesn't mean I can just hand over such a huge amount of money without expecting to get it back. Think about it. Even if a close friend of mine was in trouble and needed that kind of money, I'd still expect them to pay me back eventually. But with my family, things are even more complicated. We're not close anymore, they haven't acted like they care about me in years, and based on their track record, there's no way they'd be able to repay me. So giving them the money just doesn't make sense. It would be like throwing it into a black hole, expecting it never to return. I talked this over with some of my friends to get their take on it. I wanted to see if I was being too harsh or unreasonable, but all of them agreed with me. They said that not giving my family the money was the right thing to do. It's not about getting back at them for past hurts. It's simply about being sensible. They pointed out how absurd it was for my family to even expect financial help from me after everything they put me through. So now I've taken the step to block them. This means my mother can't call me up anymore and try to guilt-trip me into doing things for them. It's a relief, really. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about their drama or getting dragged into their messes anymore. I can just focus on my own life and move forward without that constant stress. It's like I've finally closed a long, exhausting chapter of my life, and now I'm ready to start a new one. Update 2. Hi guys. So something really big happened today. I was at work when I received a call from my neighbor saying that there was a couple outside my house who were screaming for me to come out and talk to them. My neighbor told me that they seemed pretty crazy and had been screaming at the door for about an hour, refusing to leave. I asked her for a description of them, but in my heart I already knew who it was. She told me how they looked, and it just confirmed that I was indeed going to run into Melissa and Lucas when I got back home. My neighbor told me that I needed to come back and deal with this because she didn't think these two were up to any good, and I agreed. When it was Melissa and Lucas we were talking about, they could never be up to any good. So I thanked her and started driving back home immediately because I couldn't risk them getting into my house at any cost. I got there in about 15 minutes, luckily. and caught them in the act of trying to break into my house by picking the lock on my door. I pulled up in front of my house and asked them what the hell they thought they were doing, and then I tried to call the police immediately. But Lucas was as quick as lightning. He rushed over to me and knocked the phone out of my hands. Melissa also walked over to me and told me that they were here just to talk and they didn't want anything from me, not at the moment at least. I told them to make it quick and also said that they shouldn't expect me to invite them inside, so whatever they had to talk about had to be discussed out there in the yard. They seemed to be okay with that, which was a relief because I really didn't think it would be a good idea to invite those two inside. They already seemed pretty hostile, so I didn't know what to expect. Since they said they didn't want anything from me, Melissa started talking and told me that my mother had told her about the phone call and how I'd ignored the subsequent texts from her and then even blocked them. She told me that the way I was behaving was very unfair and that it had been 5 years since then, so I should really be over it by now. Instead, I was resorting to such silly and dramatic acts just to get a little bit of attention from my family. She said that she felt very insulted because of how I had refused to help them, and that's what she was here to talk to me about. She said that she'd been able to arrange the money for now, but there was a very strong chance that she might need more in the future, and because she'd sold their house and all their jewelry to get the money this time, she obviously couldn't do that again, so she had to know that she could fall back on me and rely on me for help when she needed it. I told her that no, she couldn't, and she must not count on me at all under any circumstances because I hate her and her husband with a passion. I was so angry that I also told her that it was taking me a lot of restraint not to hit her at the moment, so it would be in their best interests to just leave. Lucas had the audacity to say that they weren't going anywhere until I signed the document that would confirm that I would give them money in the future whenever they needed it. I mean, it wouldn't even be valid if I was forced to sign it under pressure. I'm pretty sure there are laws against it, and also, they must be insane if they actually thought they could manipulate me into signing something like that. I told both of them to get the hell out, and Melissa pushed me, saying that I had to help them because apparently I owed this to them since they were family and I couldn't just run away from my responsibilities like this. I was shocked that she'd actually pushed me, and I was about to slap her. But I controlled the urge to do that because things would only get worse if I got violent. Instead, I decided to grab my phone, which had fallen to the ground when Lucas knocked it out of my hand, and made a run for it. I climbed into my car as quickly as I could and then drove off without even bothering to check my rearview mirror. I hadn't bothered to shut off the engine when I had left the car, so it was still running, and it didn't take me much time to get a head start on them. Obviously, they were not stupid enough to chase after me on foot, so they just waited there at my house, which is pretty unfortunate. As soon as I was a safe distance away from them, I decided to call the police and tell them what was going on, and then I drove back to my house just in the nick of time. The police arrived within 20 minutes. I filled them in on everything, and they arrested and took Melissa and Lucas away. I knew that the charges weren't that serious, and they would get off pretty easily, but it was still worth it because at least they were taken away and I didn't have to waste any more of my time with them. It's been a couple of hours since then, and I haven't heard from anyone in my family, which is strange because I'd figured that by now at least one of them would have tried to contact me from some other number. But they haven't, so I'm guessing they're either just over everything and not going to try and get under my skin again, or they're just waiting it out and biding their time so they can contact me later when things are a little less tense. Update 3. Hi. So the last update was about a week ago, and I honestly thought I had finally shaken off all the family troubles after calling the cops on Melissa and Lucas. I was pretty sure that was going to be the end of their shenanigans and they wouldn't bother me again, but oh boy was I wrong. Just when I thought I could chill and not worry about family drama anymore, guess who shows up at my doorstep? My parents. Yep, out of the blue they popped up at my house yesterday. They looked pretty humble, and not at all like the pushy, arrogant vibes I got from Melissa and Lucas, so I thought, okay, maybe I should hear them out, and I let them in. As soon as we sat down in the living room, my mom started crying. It was like a dam had broken. She was really emotional and immediately started apologizing for ever taking Melissa's side over mine. It was a lot to take in right from the start. My dad, who usually keeps his emotions in check, had a serious tone as he filled me in on what had been going on with them. He explained that after they found out about Melissa and Lucas getting arrested because of their nasty behavior, and also because they had physically pushed me, they were completely shocked. He said it was like a wake-up call for them. They couldn't look at Melissa and Lucas the same way anymore and had decided to cut them off completely. My mom, still crying, nodded in agreement with what my dad was saying. She was really torn up about the whole thing. My dad continued, admitting they were really sorry for siding with Melissa in the past, especially since I was the real victim in all this. They realized they had messed up big time by not supporting me when I needed them the most. Listening to all this, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was relieved they finally saw the truth, but another part of me felt like it was just too little too late. I've gotten used to living my life on my own terms now, without depending on them or putting them before my own well-being. So as much as I appreciated their visit and their apologies, I just couldn't promise them that I would jump right back into trying to mend our relationship. It felt like trying to glue back together a broken vase, possible, but it's never going to be the same again. I told them that while I appreciate them finally coming to their senses, I've moved on, and I really didn't see the point in trying to salvage a relationship that felt beyond repair. Even if they are my parents, I just wasn't up for the emotional roller coaster again. They seemed a bit taken aback by my response. They tried to argue that we could fix things if we really wanted to, but that's where the crux of the issue lay. I didn't want to anymore. I just wanted some peace and quiet to live my life without this constant drama. I expressed to them that I respected their efforts to make amends, but as far as I was concerned, I was done with all the past chaos. They looked pretty disappointed, and I could tell they weren't expecting me to cut ties this firmly. However, they finally got up to leave after a bit more discussion. On their way out, they asked if I could at least unblock them so they could keep in touch, maybe a text here and there. I agreed to unblock their numbers, which honestly felt weird after everything that had happened. But I did it because part of me thought it might be good to leave a small door open, just in case. But, yeah, that's the full update. Quite a turn of events, huh? Update 4. Life has settled into a new normal since the last time I updated. I've had a lot of time to reflect on everything that's happened, and I've been focusing on personal growth and finding peace within myself. After the drama with my family, I've taken steps to ensure that my life remains as calm and positive as possible. Recently, something unexpected happened. While I've kept communication with my parents to a minimum, just occasional texts to check in, they reached out with an invitation to a small family gathering. It's the first time they've tried to include me in anything like this since our falling out. They assured me it would be low-key, with just a few close relatives, and notably, Melissa and Lucas would not be there. I was hesitant at first. The idea of stepping back into a family setting after all that had transpired was daunting. However, a part of me was curious to see if there had been any real change in their attitudes and behavior. So I decided to accept the invitation, setting some boundaries for myself, and making it clear that I would leave if I felt uncomfortable at any point. The gathering was surprisingly pleasant. My relatives who were present had been supportive of me through the tough times, and it was refreshing to catch up without any underlying tension. My parents were respectful of my space and made an effort to make the environment welcoming. It was clear they were trying to make amends and rebuild some form of relationship. During the event, my father took a moment to speak with me privately. He expressed genuine remorse for their past mistakes and acknowledged that they had failed me when I needed them most. He didn't make excuses for their behavior, but instead focused on how they hoped to move forward, even if it meant taking small steps. My mother, too, had her moment with me. She shared how the entire situation had been a learning experience for them and how it had made them reevaluate many of their choices and relationships. She hoped that in time we could find a new way to connect, even if it wasn't like before. Leaving the gathering, I felt a mix of emotions. It was comforting to know that there was still a part of my family that could show love and support, yet I was also cautious, not ready to fully let down my guard just yet. I've learned a lot about boundaries and self-respect through these experiences, and I'm not willing to compromise those for anyone, not even family. As for Melissa and Lucas, I haven't had any direct contact with them since the incident at my house. I've heard through the grapevine that they're trying to mend their ways and rebuild their lives, but I've kept my distance. Some relationships are just not meant to be mended, and I believe their betrayal falls into that category. In conclusion, this chapter of my life has taught me about resilience and the importance of self-care. I've come out stronger and more aware of my own needs and limits. Life is too short to spend it in constant turmoil, and I'm committed to spending mine surrounded by positivity and people who genuinely care. Here's to new beginnings and the continuation of a journey towards peace and happiness.